So I've just finished reacting to the first episode of Pokemon, and now I'm just going to do my Let's Talk About video, which essentially you could say is a review. I don't really like calling it a review because then it's more thorough. I'm just talking about the episode in general. So it is an honest review on it, but I'm not going to do what these series spoilers do where you go down and break down the entire episode, because then this falls under a breakdown episode. So I'm just going to casually talk about the episode in general and then give my overall feedback for it. So obviously episode 1 is the introduction to the entire Pokemon series. The pilot episode, if you would say, the one that kickstarted it all, the one that we all know. I feel like even if you were brought into Pokemon now and you were watching it from season 15 or 20, you would still remember the first ever episode. They even did the whole movie special, which was Pokemon I Choose You. So whether you saw the OG episode or not, you would definitely know the story because they did that movie special of it. I did unbox on my channel, I obviously saw it. So again, I feel like everyone should know this story of Ash Ketchum's like path to becoming a Pokemon Master. And after 20 seasons, 22 to be exact, he finally becomes the Pokemon champ. He finally wins the Pokemon League. But it was just seeing that journey of him developing to that role. So the first one is obviously he's 10 years old, which means in the Pokemon universe, he now qualifies to be a Pokemon trainer, which means he gets his very own starter Pokemon, which at the time in Kanto, in Pallet Town for Professor Oak, it consists of either the grass-type Pokemon Bulbasaur, the water-type Pokemon Squirtle, or the fire Pokemon Charmander. Everyone's favourite classic that everyone always goes with, Charmander. Charmander is definitely the one people want to go to because it is the GOAT, it is the rare one. Like literally, when you come to Charizard on Pokemon cards, the Charizard one will always be the most expensive, most valued one over the other two starters. And when you do play the games, everyone always wants to do Charizard because it's so much more better experience playing it with that one, as it kind of sets the challenge a bit more difficult in your favour. So for me, I always started a Pokemon game with the water type, but then when I come to it the second time around, I always choose the fire type. I rarely choose the grass type because I always never had good experience with grass types. So Ash has those 3 Pokemon that you can choose from, but you know, being 10 and being overexcited, he definitely sleeps in because it's 11 at night and his mum's telling him to go to bed because he's got the big day tomorrow, but he has to be up on time, up and early to get his first starter Pokemon. But what happens, he's dreaming, he's reminiscing about which Pokemon he wants to capture, which one he wants to choose as his starter Pokemon. And you know, from that, it's just like, you know, he's getting that mindset like which one he would go with, also given narratives between each two. And he wakes up knowing that his alarm clock's broken and he's overslept. And you're probably thinking, how did he break it? Well, actually, if you remember him dreaming, he actually picked up his Voltorb alarm clock, which looked like a Pokeball, which he was using at the start before he went to bed. He actually threw it and he must have smashed it. So he had that in his mindset, in his dream of throwing the Pokeball and sending out his starter Pokemon, but he actually threw his alarm clock at the wall, thus smashing it. Thus made him late for his appointment with Professor Oak to get his starter Pokemon. Thus he had to run in his pajamas, and since he's in his pajamas, he has to hurry and scamper around and get out the doors and get to Professor Oak so we can choose his starter Pokemon. And that's where we meet our main protagonist, the rival, essentially, because Ash needs a rival to balance the character out. There's always that role of that main character having a polar opposite where he must do better and must strive to be better than. And in every new installment of the Pokemon series, he always has that rival element to push him to further his goals, not only to be a Pokemon Master and get all badges, be in the Pokemon League, he also has to make sure that he's on top of his rival at all times. And Gary at the start, and I've said this in my reaction video, and I'll say this now, Gary, when they made the character, they made him very like aggressive, like he's anti, like he's always arrogant and he was always stuck up. So he was always looking down on Ash. He was never really giving him any approval, and everyone always thought of him as the bad guy of the story because he was a complete douche. He was just his attitude towards Ash in general. But in the later seasons, they toned him down, and actually we saw him as an actual decent guy. So he may have started out that way, but he's matured into a nice adult. So we saw that along the way with Gary Oak. But at the time, he was one of those stuck-up people that you just want to make sure that Ash always beat him and, you know, put that smug, like, attitude in his place. Like, put him down a notch so he knows what it feels like being on the bottom. Then Ash finally heads inside and he gets to choose which starter Pokemon he wants. He also gets introduced to Professor Oak. Ash chooses Bulbasaur, but to no avail, it's empty. Because Oak reminds him that that was already claimed by someone who was on time. So he chooses Squirtle, same result. And then he chooses Charmander, same result. And each time Professor Oak reminds him that it was already claimed because someone was also on time. And it's kind of those hidden messages they throw in shows at the time. And they might do it now. I don't really watch shows of today's era. I will always watch my era, and if it continues on to this era, then I will obviously continue watching it. But back then, they would hide hidden messages in shows. So in Pokemon, they did the whole, you know, you sleep in, you snooze, you lose type of scenario. So it lets kids know never to sleep in, always make sure you're up on time. It's a vague, small, hidden message that many people will disagree on, but it's there. Professor Oak has a fourth Pokemon, and now this was only, you know, a rare occasion for, you know, Ash Ketchum. You know, out of everyone else, he chooses the Pikachu as his starter because that's the only one left. But we also see Pikachu as this non-obedient Pokemon where it's not really liking Ash, really doesn't really want to listen to him, does his own thing, doesn't even stay in the Pokeball because he refuses to be confined in a small space, which we find out later on in the episode that through the Pokedex that some Pokemon don't like being inside the Pokeballs because of the confined space. Maybe Pikachu's claustrophobic, that's probably why. It's like a safety mechanism to make sure the Pokemon's healthy. The reason why I believe, and this is my theory why Pikachu doesn't obey Ash, is I believe Pikachu is a level 100 in my mindset, okay? I know there's no levels in the Pokemon universe, but in the game there is, so we're just basing it off the game level so we get a nice little understanding in the show. So imagine Pikachu's level 100 is not going to listen to a trainer with no experience, no badges or whatsoever. So that's probably why Pikachu refuses to obey Ash, because he's inferior to him, so he doesn't want to listen to him. But until Ash proves his loyalty and shows that he loves Pikachu more than just being a Pokemon to him, they become best buddies. That's what the whole episode 1 does. It shows that, you know, their bond is unbreakable. They used to hate each other, then, you know, through some certain act, they became to love each other. So it's kind of nice that they threw that in there. And it also falls back on, like, what if Ash was on time? You know, if he was on time, he would have never have chose Pikachu, because that wouldn't have been an option. So his whole storyline could have gone in a different direction. Got to understand, like, he was choosing which Pokemon he wanted to be in his dream, but when he was there in a hurry, he quickly chose Bulbasaur because it's the quick, easy one. But if he was on time, he would have probably gone with the Charmander or Squirtle. So whichever starter he would have chose if he was on time would have set his entire path in a different direction. Because when he would have met Pidgey, he would have just caught that Pidgey because that starter Pokemon would listen to him because it's a low-level Pokemon. So whichever starter he chose when he was on time would damage that Pidgey. Then he would capture it and never had the indication to get involved with the Spearow. So his path would have been completely different. Even meeting Team Rocket would have been completely different because he would just have a weak Pokemon, and probably that Pokemon would have been stolen because Ash was incapable of actually training it properly. So, you know, him being late was actually beneficial towards Ash because it would have gave him Pikachu. Like, there's a left and right road. Ash went down the middle. Ash broke the fourth wall, and, you know, he got put in a tough situation and prevailed. So there's also that you can look at as well. There's all these possibilities when you come back to the first episode of what if and what could happen, why did it happen, and all that. So yeah, don't be late, always make sure you're up on time, but also as well there's some benefits for being late in this case. Rare occasions, don't always happen, but it does. So anyway, he finally picks Pikachu, doesn't obey him, and they head off into the first route, which by the games people head off through Route 1, We have no idea which of the routes he's in, but obviously he's leaving Pallet Town and is on his way to Vermilion City. And in between, though, that city and Pallet Town are routes 1, 2, and possible 3 along the way. So he's able to see a bunch of Pokemon. Obviously, this leads back to the Pidgey scenario. So since Ash has Pikachu, Pidgey at that point, Ash is unable to use Pikachu to weaken Pidgey to capture it. So he tries throwing just the Pokeball. And, the Pokeball fails, of course, because you need to damage the Pokemon in order to make the catch successful. Makes it a lot easy. There is a slight percentage chance that sometimes the first throw could capture it. But, you have to at least weaken the Pokemon to make it much more easier for the trainer. But since Pikachu doesn't want to listen to Ash, Ash will have to do it himself, which he then tries with his jacket, sneaking up on the Pidgey, waiting for his time, waiting for his moment, thrown over, trying to somehow secure the Pidgey any way possible. But that's when we learn our first glimpse. No matter how small a Pokemon is, they are very powerful. Take Pidgey for example. When you confine that space, Pidgey can generate a tornado. A small Pidgey can generate that type of tornado out of nowhere. A tornado that can cause devastation on a large scale, and that small bird can generate one, as well as do a sand attack. Which we know that the tornado is actually his move called Gust, which does show a little bit of a tornado effect. So it was Gust that he was using, but imagine it was a fully evolved Pidgey into a Pidgeot using Gust. They would simulate a full hurricane, like a tornado, if you would say, that dangerous. And then Ash will have to try to recapture a Pidgey by throwing rocks, but instead of hitting a Pidgey, he mistakes it for a Spearow, which is more aggressive, which will attack humans when provoked, as well as Pokemon. And Spearows are more hated towards Pokemon that are trainers, because they feel that they are slaves, and Pokemon who are free are more higher up in the food line. So that's why Spearow started attacking Pikachu. And this is the whole bonding begins. This is the whole massive opening, is Ash challenging the Spearows, which is the most iconic moment in Pokemon history. Is just Ash trying to capture a simple Pidgey, ending up pissing off a Spearow, which led to the Spearow attacking Pikachu, which Pikachu retaliated, which led to a whole flock of Spearows chasing him down, which then had to result in Ash and Pikachu running away. So this all happened because Pikachu didn't listen to Ash to help him capture Pidgey, which then resulted in Ash doing it by himself and then causing mayhem. And no matter what they do, they can't shake the Spearow flock. They go into the water, they jump down, they see a Magikarp, a Gyarados, they get fished out of the water by Misty, which plays a big part later on in the story, and then steals a bike to make an escape. Is at this point they're still on their trail, it starts to rain, and then somehow, in every good scenario, there has to be some incident that happens that somehow messes with the whole plot. So Ash manages to fall off the bike, Pikachu goes flying off in the distance, and Ash is immobilized, unable to do anything. So he has to crawl to Pikachu, telling him to get inside the Pokeball where it's safe. Because, he's only asking this one time to stay in the Pokeball where he won't get any harm done, while he defends, trying to fight off this herd of Spearows. And that's where Pikachu first sees a glimpse of trust, where this one trainer isn't out to, hurt him, that this trainer is actually protecting him, giving him love that he's never experienced. And what best way Pikachu does to repay that offer? Jumps in the way and lets off this massive big attack, which we have never seen before, and we'll never get close to that scale before, obliterates the entire Spearow flock. And I found that just amazing. At the time when they produced this, that scene alone is astonishing. Just amazing how they were just hand-drawn, doing all those scenes, and just making that one Pikachu have so much power that it just became this special little guy. And Pikachu's not rare. You can find Pikachu in many of the games, but this Pikachu Ash has is super rare because it's super powerful and it's unordinary compared to other Pikachus out there. It's the one Pikachu that doesn't evolve through Thunderstone because it rejects it. It even happened in the games as well. You can't evolve your Pikachu in special Pikachu Edition Yellow game because, it just won't allow it. So Pikachu, Ash's partner Pokemon, been through Ash from the start to the end, all because of this moment, this journey. And just think, if Ash was on time, this would have never happened. Ash would have probably had a Squirtle or a Charmander, you know, probably a Bulbasaur, who knows? And then Pikachu would have just been left in that Pokeball forever. Maybe he might have a trainer, who knows? Probably for the next 10-year-old to come and get it, who knows? The best way to end it off is that you see this magical Pokemon that, you know, just stunned us, that we just never saw before. Not even the Pokedex knew what it was, and then we wouldn't find out till many years later. Like, okay, we get a glimpse from Professor Oak in a later episode, like, what it was, but we never saw it again. It wasn't really referenced that much, and it's just one of those mindsets, like, great, there's one Pokemon that's leaning over that won't get introduced till much later on in the series. Is there at the start, and it's not on the Pokedex, and it's all gold as well, which obviously the later designs is more colourful. But yeah, the episode ends off in such a good way. It's mind-boggling how the first episode opened up so much, and that's it. That's how you introduce a story. That's how you do an origin story about two best friends. That's how you do it, and that's what I love about the episode. I go and watch it non-stop, and I just get so much nostalgic vibe from it. The fact that I watched it as a kid, I'm re-watching it now, and I still remember it scene by scene till this day. Mind-blowing. But yeah, that's my whole take on episode 1 of Pokemon season 1, episode 1. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Obviously, I will do episode 2 review. There might be a reaction, like I said. With the reactions, I'm trying to react to certain key points. Some episodes might be, say, I react to 3 episodes all together. It could be something like that. It could be a mashup. Who knows? But the episodes will be singular ones because it's more easy to focus on an episode on a review or talk about, rather than doing them in bundles, because I feel like I then go the whole narrative of that episode. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot from reviews and reactions to this channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, take care.